In 2014, there was a post on the Tianya forum about the landlord's greed and picked up an old second-hand house. But from the moment he moved in, strange things happened. There were all kinds of strange furnishings. I felt like the owner was conducting some horror rituals. Next, I will use the first-person perspective to tell the whole story in detail. It happened at the end of last year. Due to my work, I had to move from my hometown to F City. So, under the introduction of the realtor, I contacted several cheap old houses. After some hesitation, I chose an old house that was extremely dirty. The price is no different from ordinary old houses. What attracted me? The owner left all his belongings. Although they're not valuable, but it deeply attracted me. I've always liked things that look old and retro objects. The owner left an old sewing machine, oil lamp, and gun, and gourds, etc. What's more, he left alive things behind, 2 birds, and many plants. I think it's all very interesting. It's like a kind of peeping. When cleaning the room, you can and experience the stories of strangers. I quickly bought this second-hand house, and I decided to clean the house myself. Because in addition to the house purchase, I don't have much decoration for. I just want to clean it up and move in. But when I was truly alone, in this house, I felt a deep sense of fear. I found that this house, or the previous owner, did have some problems. The owner was a middle-aged man in his 40s. His life must have a long way to go. But when I opened the closet, all his clothes were inside. Could it be that he doesn't want to live, so he left without anything? Or the house is haunted and wanted to escape? This is the study. The previous owner should be a collector. I believe that once, he must have been fond of the gourds and jars, loved them very much. This is after entering the door. A shotgun is placed on the God of Wealth statue and the gourds that can be seen everywhere in the house, which makes me puzzled. This is the bird on the first floor. The owner didn't even take the living things. The house has 2 floors. The upstairs is spacious, and downstairs is a small living room. I started to clean up the house, and the toiletries left by the previous owner, and tableware all away. There were some leather jackets. I contacted the person who wished secondhand clothes and sold for $300. I'm hungry after cleaning. I'm going to order. I told the delivery guy my address, but he couldn't find my place no matter what, so I had to go downstairs. When locking the door, I met my neighbor next door. He turned out to be a cute guy. I nodded and said, "Hello," but he was extremely cold. He glanced at me and went straight into the house. I walked a long way downstairs to contact the delivery guy. I said there is a seafood restaurant across from the old building. How could you not find it? He said he knew there was a seafood restaurant, but it has been rebuilt. How could there be an old building? Hearing what the delivery guy said, I was a little scared again. I always thought I was a very courageous person, but I have a weakness that I love to associate and be sensitive. I suspect whether the house I live in is a haunted house. My neighbors don't talk to me. Others don't know about this old building to find out the truth. After I got home, I opened social media to search for people nearby, to ask about it. Here is a screenshot of my query. Anyway, after asking, I was really scared. I asked several people. They had no idea there were old buildings here. It was already late. The light in the room was dim and a smell of burning incense. I was scared and didn't move. I sat in the living room with the music on my phone loudly. I closed my eyes and didn't dare to look around. I fell asleep on the sofa in the living room. Then I experienced my first sleep paralysis. My left foot started to feel cold, like stepping on ice. It's cold and painful. A face was pressed tightly against me. I couldn't see his facial features. I could only see the eyes staring at me. I couldn't feel his breathing. Only felt the cold and fear. I heard a voice saying, "It's so cold. I'm just passing by to rest. It's cold. I'm really sure there's something wrong with this room." I called my mom right away and told her what happened. Mom said, "Find a friend to take me to see the master to check the house, but it has to wait until the day off. Let me endure it." I was full of fear and still cleaning the house, while waiting for my mom's friend to help me find a master to view the house. I never dared to sleep in that terrifying living room again. I could only hide in the bedroom to sleep. When I was sleeping in the bedroom, I was in a half-dream state. I heard the sound of birds coming from the first floor. It was loud, and it was creepy. I quickly put on my earphones. At this moment, I felt my body become light, and I opened my eyes. I opened my eyes quickly. I saw the ceiling right in front of me. The rain stains on the ceiling were clearly visible. I thought I was dreaming again. It must be that I've been too nervous these days. I kept reminding myself, everything in front of me is a dream. How could I possibly get up? Just as I was thinking this way, I suddenly fell back on the bed. Although I didn't feel any pain. But I saw the quilt covering me being lifted up was being lifted up very, very slowly. I thought this dream was too scary. Just as I was thinking this way, the music on my phone was switching to next song. Because I often listened to music to sleep, I could totally remember the order of songs. I was suddenly scared awake. I sat up and I touched my shoulder in fear. My left shoulder was cold. I suddenly remembered my dream. Could it be that when I was sleeping, the quilt was really lifted? I immediately looked up at the ceiling. The dark yellow water stains on it, exactly the same as what I saw in my dream. I had a headache and trembled with fear. I couldn't tell the difference between reality and dream. After that night, I didn't dare to turn off the light. As a big sister, I couldn't handle the supernatural events anymore. Finally, it was Saturday. My mom's friend came to pick me up to find a master. They call the master the tea room. On the way, the aunt said her mouth didn't stop talking. She said she hadn't asked this person for help for a long time. In 1998, she took her daughter to a seaside resort once, and the child was haunted by that thing. He didn't believe in this statement either. But the child's high fever persisted, and the 4 didn't work either. And it got worse every time he came back from hospital. So there was no way. The child's grandmother asked relatives to find this person who can check to see the child. The child got better the next day. Since then, he has believed it. Hearing what he said, I was also confident. I felt that the situation at home would definitely improve. The aunt asked me, if the master can't handle the situation at home, what would you do? I said, I was curious. Even if there are ghosts, I also need to find out what kind of ghost it is. Aunt said, if the master couldn't handle it, you should sell the house as soon as possible. It's better to be confused about everything. I said, I'm just curious about everything, and I want to know everything. The topic ended like this. We arrived at a residential building. There was a square red paper on the master's door with dark brown stains on it, like blood stains. When I entered the master's room, it's very ordinary, just like a normal family. The master asked how your health is recently. I said it's fine, nothing unusual. I just had a headache. I handed over my phone and let the master see the photos. The master said the owner was not ordinary. I immediately asked the owner what happened. Can you tell me in detail? The master said that from the photo, he didn't take anything at all, which is strange, which is very strange. What's more strange is he has too many gourds. It should be for warding off evil. I said, do you think there's evil in this house? The master said, I had to go to know. Let's go. Take me to see it. Hearing that the master was going to see the house, my back was sweating profusely. I felt that this kind of thing, only seen on TV before. Could there really be something wrong with my house? The master quickly packed his things and quickly arrived at my home. As soon as he entered the door, the master shouted, as if he was scaring something, Then the master went to fetch water and placed it on the floor of the living room. He sat in front of the water and looked at the water silently. I saw ripples in the water bowl for a while, one after another. I was scared and took a step back involuntarily. The master stood up and poured the water directly on the door. Seeing the white water attached to the door, the master observed carefully. After a long time, the master turned to me and said, "Your house is not in serious trouble, but maybe it's because of my limited ability. Anyway, move if you can. At least now, you are still a normal person like us." Hearing what the master said, I felt more confused. What does he mean? I'm a normal person now. Will I be abnormal in the future? After sending the master away, I sat in the room. I smelled the heavy incense again. I don't know where this smell comes from exactly. I looked carefully in the room, in the study. After I lifted a velvet cloth, I was frightened. There was such a big incense burner in the room. There was nothing on it. I was stunned by the full incense. But the only thing I can be sure of is there must be something wrong with my place. The bigger problem is the original owner. And if I really want to figure this out, I can only ask him or find the answer in this strange house. The birds left by the two homeowners makes me feel very scared every time. I think I must get rid of the birds as soon as possible. On Sunday morning, I found an old man and finally persuaded him to take it. Finally, I solved the problem. I breathed a sigh and gave the bird to him. Finally, it's the weekend. I'm going to clean up the house. The night after the master left, I didn't have a nightmare. I felt that everything would develop in a good way. I cleaned up some magazines and books and put away the gourds that were everywhere at home. I saw a few special ones among them, as shown. Later, I checked it out. This is a bumpy gourd. Just one of many varieties. I thought it was odd, so I took a photo for everyone. When I was tidying up the drawer of my desk, I saw a notebook, and when I unfolded it, I found it was a diary, only a few scribbled pages, with short content. But between the lines, it can be seen. The original owner was indeed a weird person. The writing is hard to understand, and nonsense. The note says to eat red beans. I searched on Baidu and found that red beans. There is also a recipe for New Year's Eve dinner, the names of the dishes. It seems that he spent New Year's Eve alone, which made me feel the loneliness from him. After tidying up the living room and study, I'm going to the bedroom to rest. When I passed the hallway, I heard a cough sound. The sound was very clear. It was as if it was in my ear. I didn't dare to look around and didn't look back and walked stiffly to the room. Suddenly I saw the dresser in my bedroom. My facial features were blurred in the mirror. At that moment, I immediately ran to bed, covering myself with the quilt and not opening eyes. I stayed like that for a long time. It was almost 12 o'clock. I called a friend on my phone and chatted casually to distract myself. The next day, during the day, I opened the tightly closed curtains and opened all the windows in the room. I wanted to quickly dispel the smell of incense. Whether in the room or at the end of the hallway, it always looks like someone is standing, day or night. It's the same. This room is never normal at any moment. Because of fear, I decided to put up the house for sale or sharing. The first one to contact me was a girl who was about my age. She wanted to share the rent. After the girl called me, I asked her to see. After she came to see the room and decided to move in, I thought I would have someone to accompany me and I wouldn't be so scared. I was happy when the girl moved in. We slept in bedrooms at two ends of the hallway. I'm a very easygoing person and easy to get along with. The day she just moved in, I cooked dinner and invited her to eat. She said she wouldn't eat. What surprised me was not his rejection, but the tone of rejection was very blunt, which made me uncomfortable. At least I can judge that he is very rude and difficult to get along with. Despite this, but I can understand it. Because if he is very disciplined, as a rigid tenant, it would be fine. We could have had little interaction. In the first 3 days after he moved in, I didn't feel anything unusual about the house. I think maybe after popularity, everything has really improved. On the 4th day he lived here, I came home from work. I was going to get my computer to surf the internet when I turned the door I was startled. The curtains in my room were closed. Since I lived here, I don't care about them. I always try to let the sunshine in as much as possible, but when I just entered the room and found it was dark and I was scared, I turned on the light on the wall. I found my quilt bulging as if someone was lying inside. I couldn't help shouting. The quilt was suddenly lifted, but it was my roommate lying inside. When he looked up at me, I felt my whole body was shaking. He looked very pale. His face was livid and dark circles. I involuntarily took a few steps back. I don't know why. I felt very scared of him. He asked calmly what you were shouting. I asked why. You were sleeping in my room. He looked around and suddenly said, Sorry, I went the wrong way. I thought it was better not to argue. I opened the curtain and said, How did I get here? Can't you tell this is my bed? He said I was drunk and seemed to have gone the wrong way. I asked curiously if he didn't have to work during the day. He didn't answer this question. Then he said he would help me wash the sheets and quilt. I'm sorry, then got up and left my room. I think my roommate is also weird. His words and deeds made me uneasy. It was hard to fall asleep at night. But suddenly I had a stomachache in the middle of the night because the bathroom is next to my room. I could easily hear the sound from the bathroom. The water was running like the sound of rain. I looked at the clock. It was 3. I cursed my roommate in my heart for being so bad, taking a shower, which made my stomach acid worse. I felt so sick. I had to run to the bathroom and knock on the door. I knocked hard. I found the door open, but I was so nauseous that I couldn't speak. Whenever I spoke, I would basically vomit it out. So I ran into the bathroom and found it was pitch black inside. Without turning on the light, I couldn't help vomiting directly on the tile floor. Then I said, Sorry. I turned on the light and found that there was no one in the bathroom and the shower wasn't on. Could it be that I'm hallucinating? When I just entered the bathroom, the water was on. When I was washing my hands at the sink, I looked in the mirror and it was foggy. My whole scalp went numb. I had to run to ask him immediately. I couldn't get through this night with such a feeling. Through this night, I ran to his room without cleaning up the vomit. I was shocked. His room door was open, and I went straight to his bedroom. I turned on the light, but he wasn't home. I was really panicked at that time. The fog from my roommate's shower hadn't cleared. I quickly touched the shower head. It was not only wet, but also hot. I couldn't feel the stomachache. I took my phone and ran downstairs. I grabbed a coat from the hanger at the door and quickly left the house. I was wearing pajama, wearing a coat, and took a taxi. I was very scared, but I didn't know where to hide. I begged the driver to take me back to S-City. S-City is where my parents live. It's only an hour-and-a-half drive from my city. I must go home that night with my parents together. It was past 5 in the morning when I got home. Mom was surprised when she opened the door. I said, Mom, my house is haunted. I was scared and came back. I sat down in the living room. She looked at me and comforted me. She suddenly shifted her gaze to my coat. I also looked down and saw, almost vivid at that moment. My mom said you had a boyfriend. I said it wasn't my clothes. I quickly took it off in fear. My mom said your roommate is a girl, right? How could there be a man's coat? I said only my coat was hanging on the hanger at the door. How could this be? I really broke down and cried. I ran out in the dark. I didn't even notice that it wasn't my clothes. My mom started to look at me with suspicion and then said to me, If something else happened to me, tell me. If you have a boyfriend, don't hide anything from me and don't tell me lies to fool me. I said weakly, Mom, I really didn't lie to you. Mom said, Since you said you didn't lie to me, then give me your roommate's phone number and I'll ask her what's going on. The phone was about to dial. Mom thought about it and put it down. She grabbed the stranger's coat that I had just thrown on the floor. Coat. Looked at it again. and said, "I'll go back with you, whether you are lying to me or there's a ghost." My mom took my phone and didn't give it back. She thought I had a bad boyfriend. She didn't believe what I said and drove me back. Immediately, I returned to the weird house with my mother. I suddenly felt dizzy when I opened the door and smelled the long-lost sandalwood before to dispel the incense smell left by the previous owner. I opened the windows for days. Why did this smell appear again? I really walked into the room with courage. The strong sandalwood smell made me feel sick and nauseous. I retched twice. My mom turned to look at me and was angry. She seemed to be cranky. He felt like I was pregnant. He went upstairs angrily. I followed him. He first went to my bedroom, but found nothing unusual, and then angrily went to my roommate's room. But the door of my roommate's room was closed. I was scared and dizzy. I clearly didn't close the door and ran home. Why was his door closed again? Mom knocked on the door, but no response. He might think I had someone at home, and opened the door and found my roommate sleeping soundly. I was puzzled. Mom looked at me again to ask her clearly. I walked to my roommate and shook her awake. Mom asked the roommate if this dress was hers. He said, "No, it's not mine." I couldn't help but ask, "Weren't you not here last night? When did you come back?" He said, "No, I was sleeping." What's wrong? My mind is getting more confused. Why did my roommate lie? When I was about to ask more questions, Mom said, "Sorry to disturb you." Then he grabbed me and took me out of his room. Mom said angrily that you felt sick since you entered and wanted to vomit several times. Are you pregnant? Go to the hospital. My mom has never been so fierce before. I was not only confused and scared by these things, but also scared by my mother's guess. How could he suspect and think I had a bad boyfriend? After seeing me vomiting, he insisted on taking me to the hospital. My roommate was at home. The things I told my mom before would no longer hold. Mom started to wonder whose men's coat it was. I can't stand it, and I couldn't defend myself. My mom and I went to the hospital. I cried in the car. Of course, the final test result was that I was not pregnant. I was angry with my mom that day. She said, "Don't work anymore and go back to S City." I think my mom still doesn't believe me. She didn't believe that there was really a problem with the house. No matter what my mom quarrels with me, I can't listen to her. I'm thinking about my roommate now. Why did he lie? I saw with my own eyes that he wasn't there. Why? Why does the smell of incense start again in the room? I was full of questions and fears. Do nothing wrong, not afraid of ghosts. This sentence suddenly became my pillar. I don't know how I walked back to that house. After pushing the door, I walked angrily to my roommate's room, and he had already got up. I asked if you took a shower in the middle of night and then suddenly left the house. He said no. I said if that man's trench coat was yours or not, or you brought someone home. He said if it was, I would admit it. I was so angry, and then I saw incense on his windowsill. I felt something was wrong, and my heart skipped a beat. This was the first time I felt fear for this roommate. I said nothing and left his room. I felt a very cold atmosphere surrounded me. I thought so hard. Why would a girl in her early 20s would light incense in the room? It's very strange. I thought, could my roommate be possessed by a ghost? Does a ghost need to eat incense? After leaving my roommate's room, I looked at his room. My legs were already shaking. I took leave in the afternoon to find the master. I found his home with my memory and told him about my recent situation and the problem with my roommate. The master said it might be my psychological problem and told me to move if I felt uncomfortable and don't insist on continuing to live. He said this was the best advice he could give me. On the way home at night, I thought whether to continue living in this house or not. The most important, I need to get rid of this terrifying roommate first. I have to find a way to get him out. He is really terrifying. Back to the room that made my hair stand on end. I saw my roommate, so I said there have been many problems recently. Let's talk about it. He looked at me and said, okay. I said, the reason for finding a roommate is I thought the house was very scary and I regretted buying it. But I'm not a rich person either. It's not easy to sell it, so I wanted to find a roommate. I thought if someone came with me, I wouldn't be so scared. He looked at me and asked. And then I was hesitant, but I forced myself to say, but since you moved in, my fear has increased more than before. Don't you think this house is very eerie? He said yes. So, eerie. There's an echo when we talk at night. After my roommate said that, I looked at his face and was scared. We never chat with each other. How could he say there's an echo when talking at night? I have two guesses. First, he is talking to the spirit world. Second, he once brought a stranger home. Whether he was a human or a ghost, I didn't think he was good. So I gritted my teeth. I said, I would refund his rent to him. I'll compensate you with some money. You can move out, he said in a hurry. Why should I move out? Did I affect you in any way? I said, did you take a shower last night? You weren't at home later. But why, when I asked you in the morning, you said you were in the room? Why did you lie? He looked at me, sighed, and said, why are you so cranky? Did we talk this morning? I said my mom came to ask you. Did you forget? He said your mom? No, what are you talking about? I don't understand. My mind is suddenly very confused. I felt stomachache and I felt dizzy and said, no matter what, you can leave. After saying that, I put the money on the table. He said, okay. And I will pack up tomorrow. I walked back to my room. I closed the door, and it started to blow. The room was dark. I heard coughing again in my ears. I was scared. I was terrified. My roommate just said she didn't see my mom. Isn't this just talking nonsense? When I was angry with my mom, I spoke very harshly. So I picked up the phone and called my mom. I said, Mom, I'm sorry. I wanted to deal with things and go home. Mom said, why do you want to go home? You don't want to work. I said, Mom, didn't you tell me not to work when I got home? I bothered you at night, and I was angry. Don't mind it. Mom said, you didn't disturb me at night. I said I was home, but I was in a hurry. Mom said with a smile over there, baby, stop teasing me. It's still several months before April Fool's Day. I'm really confused. Could it be that I'm hallucinating? I must check it out. After hanging up the phone, I checked the communication records. There was indeed a record of calling my roommate. When my mom suspected me, saying I would call my roommate. But there was no record of calling her. To make sure, I checked again. I went to check. I lost 150 yuan for taxi. It's really less. I firmly believe I'm not confused. There must be something wrong. They are all lying to me. From now on, I can't trust anyone's words anymore. I even feel like I'm surrounded by ghosts. The master found by my mom's friend, who said the house was fine. To my roommate, my colleagues, and even my mother. They are all lying. Who should I ask for help? I thought of the handsome guy next door. I want him to help me. Or in his mouth, to learn more about this old house. I rushed out of my room and knocked on the door next door. Maybe it was a moment of impulse. I immediately regretted it when he opened the door, because the smell in his room, just like my haunted room, filled with incense smell, and the same eerie. How could a boy in his 20s light incense? He said, what's the matter? I was so scared that I didn't know what to say. I said, it's okay. It's okay. I almost ran away back in the room. I was really about to collapse. I slammed the door of my bedroom and my body started to hurt. I couldn't tell if it was my stomach. It was excruciating. While I was rolling on the bed in pain, the bedboard dented. When I got up to move the bedboard, I found 2 diaries under the bed. Because it was late, I didn't dare to open it. I put them away. I'll read them tomorrow. The next day at work, I received a strange phone call. I picked up and asked who. He politely said that calling at this time, it's disturbing your nap. Sorry, I said. It's okay. Who are you? What's the matter? He said. I was selling your house. I heard it was the original owner calling. My head was buzzing. I said calmly, what's the matter with you? He asked if you cleaned the house. I said, I cleaned some of it. He then asked if it was renovated. I said no, yet. What exactly do you want? He said. He wanted to buy the house back. I'm willing to compensate you $30,000 more. I'm a little confused. I feel like my brain capacity is not enough. I said, I need to think about it. I think who would like to lose money like this? Why did he want to buy it back? Is he a fraud? Is there any conspiracy? So many questions remain unanswered. My health is getting worse. I'm dizzy and nauseous from these things, and frequent stomach aches. In the afternoon, when I was at work, I secretly took out the 2 diaries I brought and read them. I felt inexplicably sad while reading them. It wasn't because the content moved or saddened me. I just feel like crying for no reason. The diary is old, which recorded some ordinary life. But when I read the second diary, I saw the owner of the diary was sick. He was tortured by illness before he died, and often said that he wouldn't live for long. When I read about his symptoms of illness, I don't know if I'm being paranoid or what. I've had frequent headaches, dizziness, and stomach aches, which seemed very similar. Thinking about it this way, maybe this house is really not suitable to live in, and the owner wants to buy it back. Thinking of how tired I've been these days, I'm really tempted. I first told my colleagues about it. My colleague said maybe the original owner got the news of demolition, regretted selling it, and wanted to make money. Although my colleagues guess, but I'd rather lose some money, but I want to escape here. But buying and selling a house is not easy. I'd better tell my mom about it. I called my mom and she said, Mom said to sell it to him. I'll go with you when the time comes. When I came home at night, my roommate hadn't packed up and didn't look like leaving. I asked him why he hadn't moved, saying it was the money you gave me. You keep the money. His attitude was firm. To avoid a dispute, I didn't say anything and went into the room. After thinking it over, I called the original landlord. I said, I have a roommate now, and his contract isn't up and wants to continue living here, and was firm, and I want to transfer the house to you soon. He immediately said, it's okay. I agree. I said, let's set a time to go through the formalities. He said, the sooner, the better. Let's do it tomorrow. I've prepared everything I need. He was so anxious, I really couldn't figure out. I asked him if I could ask the reason why he did that. Why did you sell it and then buy it back? He said he was used to and couldn't leave. There was no special reason. To be polite, I didn't ask any more. Before dark, I was so sleepy that I couldn't open my eyes and fell asleep grudgingly. I heard the creepy bird cry again in my dream. I hurried to the small hall where the bird was, but I didn't see it. When I looked around, I saw a figure in the dream. I seemed to be much braver in the dream. I walked to the figure hidden by the plants. I grabbed the shadow with my hand and twisted his body hard. I saw that it was the original owner. I shouted desperately. I said, why did you come back? Why are you here? What do you want? He said calmly that he couldn't leave this home. Then the owner immediately pounced on me. I ran as fast as I could. I ran to my room and locked the door with all my strength and pushed the small sofa in front of the door. It seems like a long dream. I was so tired that I lay in bed and felt sleepy. I suddenly heard the sound of water. There seemed to be someone. I thought it must be the owner. I thought he was a bad guy. I had to kill him to survive. So I held the flower pot on my windowsill and walked to the bath. I was going to kill him. I was extremely nervous. I pushed open the bathroom door. I took a step in and found it was pitch black inside. The light was off. I quickly turned around and turned on the light. There was no one in the bathroom. I breathed a sigh of relief, thinking I had seen it wrong. I turned my head. I saw the landlord blocking the bathroom door again. I woke up crying in my sleep. I looked out the window. The sun had already risen. I breathed a sigh of relief. It was just a nightmare. When I sat up and was about to get out of bed, seeing the sofa blocking the door, I was scared and took a few steps and fell to the ground. I was scared and cried. I called my mom and said, "Mom, I had a nightmare last night. I'm so scared. Today we will sign the contract. Come here quickly. I can't stay here by myself." My mom didn't hesitate on the phone. Without asking, she just said, "Baby, wait for me." After hanging up with my mom, I curled up on the ground and felt the air around me was terrifying. Then I stared at the cabinet opposite me. I always felt there was someone. I quietly picked up my phone and took this photo. Secretly, time seems to stand still. I kept waiting for my mom to come. I didn't dare to move. To distract myself, I turned on my phone and played cheerful songs, but I could always hear someone talking faintly. "I can't leave. I can't leave." I turned off the music in fear, and the voice disappeared. I comfort myself. Maybe I was really scaring myself. My mom called me at this time to open the door downstairs. I almost closed my eyes and quickly ran downstairs. Opened the door. My mom, my uncle, and several heroes came. Suddenly, I wasn't so scared anymore. Mom said to pack things first, and we'll go through the formalities. In a dozen minutes, my things were carried downstairs. After moving, my mom said, "Your uncle and I will handle the formalities." My uncle works in the real estate bureau. During the time I was moving things, my roommate didn't come out of his room at all. I was also a little scared. So I didn't say hello to him, and my mom didn't even think of my roommate and completely ignored him. My mom took me home and dropped me off. I felt much better after that. I finally got rid of that terrifying house. When Mom came home at night, I said, "Mom, I begged you to tell me the truth." One day I came home late at night. "You really don't know. I told you clearly. You called my roommate but couldn't get through. Then we went back to the house together. And you even talked to my roommate." Mom didn't continue my words. He said the house matter has been settled. Thanks to your uncle. It wasn't so troublesome. By the way, we didn't overcharge him. We sold it at the same price we bought it. We can't take advantage of him. It's nothing to pay some money. I said, "Mom, we don't covet others' money, but can you answer the question I just asked? I really want to know. Mom, tell me the truth. Otherwise, I will think I'm crazy." Mom was silent for a while. She said, "You were back. I went with you, too. I saw your roommate, but I lied." When you asked me again, I was very confused. I immediately asked, "Why you lied?" Mom said the clothes you wore when you came home. I clearly held it in my hand and asked you, but when we arrived at the house, I suddenly couldn't find that dress. I said, "Yes." Didn't see it again later. Mom said, "That wasn't the reason I lied to you. The reason I lied to you, it's because I saw your roommate sleeping that day and was asleep. But I still doubted you. I walked over and grabbed his arm and shook him up. Do you remember?" I said, "Of course. I do." Mom sighed deeply and then said when I grabbed her arm, I felt uncomfortable. Her arm was cold, just like holding an ice cube. It was so cold that it hurt my palm. I said, "Mom, what do you mean?" Mom said, "He was not human." I was scared and cried. I said, "Mom, I'm scared." My mom touched my head and said, "Why I didn't say anything?" I pretended to be calm because I was afraid of. I said, "Mom." When I signed the contract with my roommate, she gave me a copy of her ID card. Mom said, "Don't look for it, and don't look for it." After getting up in the morning, I gave the dream book to my mom. Mom said, "You were under too much pressure." I said, "Mom, could this be the story of the previous owner?" I remember reading a diary he wrote about missing, and an old diary. It should be his father's. He did die of illness. Mom said, "Don't think about it, which will only affect you. We need to move on." After I said this, my stomach hurt badly. Mom said, "Let's go." I went to the hospital and there was nothing wrong and all indicators were good. Mom said, We need to see a master. My mom took me to find a master in City S. The master looked into my eyes. We looked at each other for a long time, until our eyes was sore. The master said, "Child, some things between human and ghost have happened in your eyes, are all in your eyes. You don't think too much in the future, and you'll be fine. Curiosity is a desire, can make people blind or even greedy. The more you know." I said, "Master, what's wrong?" "What's wrong with me?" The master said, "There is a poor man in your eyes. He has been in a daze for years. When he finally wants to live again, he will find that the nightmare has become his spiritual sustenance. He can't leave the place where he used to live. It's a kind of obsession," although the master didn't fully reveal it. But I seem to understand. Those in my dreams are the owner's deceased relatives. After selling the house, he found he couldn't bear it and couldn't leave because he is used to the gloom, the paranormal that can be seen everywhere, and the occasional appearance, and the occasional shadows. In his world is the way of life, but we are used to sunshine, so we have fear. In fact, neither fear is good or bad. Don't be curious and step out. That's the end of the whole thing. Here, thank you for your support and love. Meanwhile, my works will be synchronized to YouTube and TikTok. Wish you all a great day. See you in the next video.